Look, I'm glad to be with you. I will keep this short and sweet. I wasn't here yesterday. Dave's not here today because he's sick. We wish him a quick recovery. Alex Jones is on the show, so you know what that means. Please do consider watching at Rumble or on Mug Club. And listen, to people who have been listening on audio, we've heard you. I know a lot of people have accidentally been unsubscribed. There's been something going on with the RSS feed, so please do consider subscribing on Apple, on Android, on Spotify. Leave a rating or review. It does help, but there were 50,000 something people who, it could be more than that, who were complaining that the feed broke. It should be fixed. Please do resubscribe or just double check whatever app it is. Back in my day, it used to be the iTunes. Now it's all Apple. On with the show, Bible Stories.
Hey, Christ, what you doing?
I'm fasting, Bernie.
You know, if you were to endorse me for leader of the free world, everyone could be fasting all the time. It's true.
Believe me, I know.
Jesus, I'd like you to think about joining me. We can spread matching uniforms and crippling taxes across the world.
You mean stealing?
Democratic stealing.
So stealing.
No, democratic socialism!
I'm okay. I'm gonna go back to fasting.
What if I were to give you free health care?
Free healthcare? Really?
Yes! Except you'd have to pay for it.
I'm not interested in any way, shape, or form.
Perhaps I could interest you in an assortment of dreidels! Dreidels!
Look, I've had enough. I don't want any of your
You're quite
stuff.
the persnickety Jew, I see. Do you like free speech?
Very much so. It's great.
We're fresh out, but we do have some of these. I can do this all day.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Wait. Endless possibilities. Countdown races do this song, doo-dah, doo-dah. What about free health care?
I'm gonna...
Oh, and Jesus.
Yeah, but...
One more thing. If you're truly God's son, and I'm not saying you are not, then jump down from this mountain. Surely the angels will... Oh, my leg!
That's delicious. Glad to be back in this chair. And the chair is actually higher, really, because Dave was in the chair.
Well, yes.
I need a little bit lower. I need to go. Wait, where's the
left side?
There you go. That's too low. That's too low. This is Dave height.
Yeah.
This is Gerald height.
Split the difference.
So look, you've got over, under, and through. There we go. Oh. The seam on my pants just I'm going to be speaking in high voice. Women, you don't understand what this is. We'll be talking about women. We'll be talking about men. We have Alex Jones on the show. We may be removed, so of course go and watch on Rumble. We'll be going through the Twitter files, and this is one of those things. Since I wasn't here yesterday, we always say if we don't hit it first, we try to hit it best, give you information that maybe some other people have missed. But men and women it's a dynamic that we often discuss. And women, I know you'll often say like, oh, it's just being hit in the nether regions as a man is the same as a woman being hit in the chest. No. It's an organ. And I just had an organ with my genes. The seam became a high-tension cable wire. You want to know what that feels like? Take your kidneys, wrap them in a piano wire, and cinch them.
Oof.
That's too descriptive.
That's what just happened. All right. Mr. Dave, we wish him obviously a swift recovery. So it's just me and Gerald A today, which may work because of Alex Jones, and that can get a little hectic. How are you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm doing well. How are you? Other than your, testicles being...
Don't say that word.
That's a medical term.
It's a family show.
It is your nether regions.
Yes.
Just wear looser pants.
Yes.
That's also true.
So we'll also be talking about Russia Ganon was the villain in Zelda. What? Russia banning Russia, not anti-gay. Russia banning what they believe to be gay and pedophile propaganda.
Okay.
So no Balenciaga face masks in Russia anytime soon.
Or gay men kissing in public.
Right.
That too.
Which, of course you shouldn't ban that, but I think it's weird.
It's a little. I look.
So
away.
my question of the day to you is, as we move on, we'll be talking with Alex Jones about his, with his interview with Ye. I apologize if I dead name today. It's going to happen. But the question to you is, where do you rank Adolf Hitler in terms of worst dictators throughout history? To be really clear, Hitler, not a fan. And look, Alex Jones, you can accuse him of a lot of things. Being an anti-Semite, not amongst them. If you have followed him, if you know anything about his history, that is not something that you would try and label him. So I think that this is one of those issues where there's been a dirty bomb that's gone off and a lot of miscommunications. And I think we always have to allow for the possibility that someone can be wrong, someone can be misled, and not necessarily be coming from a position of hate, even though what they say comes out as very hateful. That can happen.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely, 100%. And I think you'll say a little bit more about this when we get there, but I think for the first time in history, Alex Jones was uncomfortable in an interview.
Yes, he was.
So that was pretty comical.
You could see on his face, it was like the "and boom goes a dynamite."
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
This is a bad day.
This is really bad. And I filed for bankruptcy today, and this is worse.
For crying out loud, him and Kanye, they lost, I guess I'm trying to think, they owe how many hundreds of millions of dollars if you add it all up?
Yeah.
And look, and that's not right, and that's not fair. And two things can be true. People can be wronged, and people can be misrepresented, and they can also say things with which you can disagree. Let me just lead with this. Here is kind of, I don't have a lot of purity tests, just to be clear. But I will say this. When you look at some people on the right, if people try and completely eliminate you from the pool because of one opinion, in other words, I do see some people who say, oh, if you don't side with Kanye, that means that you refuse to name them, right? Some of these people who will say that out there, some of these actual anti-Semites. No, hold on a second. Maybe there are some people out there who think that someone like Ye, I'm going to say Kanye West, think that Kanye West has some points that they maybe agree with and maybe they disagree with, and maybe there's a conversation to be had. And I do think that you can't silence everyone who has an opinion as anti-Semitic. I agree with that. But I do think that he was off the beam. I think he was wrong. And if you have people out there who say that one opinion disqualifies you and your entire body of work, those are bad actors. Those are bad actors. I think that you disqualify someone if the totality of their work, for example, a Mitch McConnell, or for example, we'll be talking today about a David French, about a Bill Kristol, about a Jonah Goldberg, if the entirety of their work is consistently to undermine the conservative principles and the foundations of this country that they claim to espouse, that's where their opinions are an eliminating factor as far as their validity. I have to be careful with the word eliminating. I mean eliminating.
Jeez.
From the pool of opinions as far as voices that you trust.
Yes.
But it should never be based on just one opinion, because you are going to disagree with every single person on Earth rabidly on at least one topic. And that's okay. For example, me and Alex Jones. I don't think the frogs are being made gay.
You don't?
They could be.
I thought that's one of the things he was proven right about.
That's true.
I thought they were just born that way. So
I don't know. Frogs are asexual. I have no idea. With
in
amphibians.
Jurassic Park, they figured it out. Life found a way.
Speaking of animorphs, here is, and I know, look, I should warn you if you have kids watching this show, there's nothing sexual. It's just gross.
Yeah.
Here is a TikToker who can be described as, trying to think of how to tactfully, morbidly obese, rotund, portly, unhealthy. And this is someone who wants to be an example for your children, sexualizing herself, and decides to self-declare that she is hot.
I could have my tummy out, even if it's just on TikTok for clout. And if you got something to say, shut your mouth, because I'm a hot ass. I'm a hot ass.
Okay.
Terrible song.
Here's what's wrong with it. First off, I get it. And I'm sorry, I should have warned you if you were eating. Here's what's wrong with it. It's not just, oh, this is a big girl. Look, if someone is big and they're working on themselves, no one has a problem with it. No one here has ever made fun of someone for just being big. She says even if it's for chasing clout. So what is happening? We've now taken fat pride. And what is it? It's just vanity. in a dishonest way. In other words, people used to be vain because they thought they were very, very good looking, right? They were desirable. Now it's false vanity, and it's demand. It's a demand that you find them attractive. So she says, I'm doing this for clout. Well, that's not a good thing. I understand that people shouldn't have bad self-esteem just because they're a little bit overweight, but they certainly shouldn't be looking to find their self-esteem and self-worth or clout in being morbidly obese. And then she goes on to say, and I'm hot. Incorrect.
Says everybody who saw that picture. By the way, there's got to be better clothing for this, right? It seems like the clothing was intentionally tight in certain areas so as to accentuate the fat in other areas.
We are using the term clothing very loosely.
Well, the clothes, they were holding on for dear life.
Yes, exactly.
Saying, right? But she also...
Like a tarp?
Maybe.
That might be something,
appropriate. Something.
Yes.
She's a very large individual. She's using the word tummy incorrectly. I think at that size, you can no longer say tummy.
Right.
No.
I'm just saying, look, she's the one putting it out there, and I mean literally hanging over everything else on her. That's just a weird look.
Well, the problem is this is now being thrust upon your children, of course, unless you're trans, then of course the Barbie doll stereotype is completely acceptable. This is the first generation of children who very likely will live a shorter lifespan than their parents. Diabetes is a problem that's on the rise.
Yeah.
You look at cardiovascular incidents, and of course we won't even get into some of the reasons that some of the confounding factors there, some of the comorbidities.
Who knows?
But we have all kinds of cardiac problems that were not manifesting themselves at a young age. Shorter life expectancy. We have insulin resistance. This is not good. It's not healthy. And where's the fact checking? Where's the fact-checking, CDC, that actually being morbidly obese is unhealthy and leads to, and then insert problems here? That's the issue, is these people have the eyes and ears of your children, and then your kids go to a public school where a teacher says, yeah, that's just as healthy as a Liver King.
Yeah. So when
and by the way, Liver King is unhealthy. Believe me, I'm saying two extreme examples.
Yeah, exactly. And then when they go home and their mom is trying to feed them broccoli, they're like, but I don't need broccoli. I need to look like that.
Yes.
I saw it on TikTok, and it's fine. By the way, they walk into a doctor's office immediately.
No, nowadays a doctor just says,
no.
Fine.
We've covered the story, right? Obviously, there could be other things wrong, but immediately it's like, I can solve all your problems. I feel like today's work is pretty easy. Just don't be that.
Right. Yeah.
Every single part of your life that could kill you those chances will go down.
Unless the dame walks into the doctor's office with Gloria Allred and he's like, you look beautiful and brave, and just keep doing what you're doing. More of that.
As you are.
Grab a lollipop on the way out. You know what? Grab the whole jar.
Yes. I can tell you like those.
All right. Which brings us to something else here. Is there a war on... We've talked about this before, but James Cameron said the quiet part out loud. He was, plugging his new movie, Avatar. Is anyone looking forward to Avatar 2?
Nope.
I walked out of Avatar 1 it's the last film I can remember leaving out of sheer boredom. Yeah. I just walked out. I was in Los Angeles. I was at somewhere in...
But they tried to save the tree.
I was just like, I can't do this. This is just so boring. It looks like a video game mixed with a pride parade. I just can't do this anymore.
That's true. That's fair.
So is anyone actually looking forward? Comment below. Avatar 2. He was promoting Avatar: The Way of Water.
And this will piss you off.
He had something to say, and it's been going viral, and there's something here that's more subversive that I hope people are understanding what it is that they're hearing. So he told The Hollywood Reporter, a lot of things I did earlier I wouldn't do career-wise, and just risks that you take as a wild, testosterone-poisoned young man. He went on to say, I always think of testosterone as a toxin that you have to slowly work out of your system. And we'll get to the good qualities of testosterone. Great stuff. I think the world could use some more of it.
Yeah.
But, of course, let's keep in mind, this is the trend of what happens. You saw this with Jonah Goldberg, right? Did super bad. Not Jonah Goldberg, Jonah Hill. We'll talk about Jonah Goldberg later. Would any asshole by another name still be as much of an asshole? So,
yes.
Here is just a reminder of how he made his bones before he decided to tell all young men that they're poison.
I'll be back.
Yes.
So good.
Love T2.
Who doesn't like Terminator 2?
Nobody.
All right. Okay.
We get it.
My point is, if you don't believe me, all the references are available at ladderwithcreditor.com. If you're not familiar with his back catalog.
Aliens. Come on.
That's okay.
Well, that's Sigourney Weaver. It's less testosterone, but
Well,
you know
that's
what?
true.
She probably has abnormally high levels, very defined jaw. It's what I call the Sandra Bullock or Andy McDowell effect. Just and could crack a nut. Now,
And has.
we'll get to testosterone, and this is something that, again, we've talked about in general, you know, us trying to feminize men. And I just think that there's been too much as far as the scales of gender. And I use gender and sex interchangeably because they always were until recently with your bullshit theories. Has been tipped too far on the side of femininity. And there are a lot of good things that men have done. And I don't just mean everything that you're using that men have invented, but I mean, there's a lot of good to actually be found in the hormone, and also some people could argue neurotransmitter of testosterone. But here's something, before I get to that, I have always despised James Cameron, just to be clear. I don't want to be a hot topic hipster here. Before it was cool, and let me tell you the moment that I realized I never wanted to hear from him again. This is how self-important people can be in Hollywood. Here is James Cameron at the Avatar premiere quoting a language he made up in a shitty movie that he wrote as though it was deep. Watch and cringe.
The Navi say in the movie, Mingati Kame, which means I see you, and it means I appreciate you and I understand you. So I just like to say Mingati Kame to my cast.
Look at that grin.
There's a lot of buzz around this movie, and I say we just get that settled right now by running the film. So.
That's enough. I can't. We don't need to hear any more from that guy. He quotes his own fake language. That's the equivalent to a guy having, you know, a Japanese tattoo, not knowing what it means, only it's his own language and he doesn't really know what it means.
Steven. Takame.
Is that what it was? Takame?
Something like that.
Takame? Yeah.
I see you.
Oh, okay. I see. And what does that even mean? I see you. These stupid terms. I see you. Well, yeah, unless you're blind. Is that ableist?
I don't think so. No.
Guy's just an absolute douchebag, and now he's going to give us advice for society. And his advice is we need less testosterone. Well, let me just give you something here to chew on. Testosterone levels have plummeted dramatically.
Yeah.
So from 1999 to 2016, testosterone levels for young men dropped by 25%. Now, here's what happens is when you say toxic masculinity, right, you associate testosterone with toxicity. He even said it's a toxic poison.
Yeah.
Being masculine isn't toxic. Now, if we want to say that abusive men who are violent immorally, because violence is amoral, but immoral violence, right. Men who are undisciplined, men who make up a huge percentage of our prisons, sure, those are bad men. But to say that masculinity is toxic, that's a problem, and then you start getting into the idea of fundamentally altering hormones. Let's get to testosterone and the kinds of things that testosterone does. Ladies, I'm not sure if you want testosterone to be continually dropping. Some of the benefits. Cognition. I know everyone thinks about strength. Cognition. Especially for older men. You're talking about attention. You're talking about processing speed, executive function. You're talking about visual, your sort of visual perception, verbal memory. Testosterone. What else does it do? It helps to heal injuries.
Yeah.
Right. Helps with recovery. It even helps with elderly women who have neck fractures. The effects on strength are very, very obvious, just to be clear. And by the way, hit the like button if you guys out there know that testosterone is a good thing. Or women, if you like your men to have more testosterone. Here's the thing. Testosterone also, by the way, it also has behavioral benefits. This is something that people don't realize. They'll say, well, testosterone can actually result in more risk-taking. And this is true. This is something a lot of people don't know. When people used to say that women were smarter than men, that's not really true. And men aren't necessarily smarter than women. What you do see is men occupy both sides of the bell curve. Right? So men make up almost all of our violent offenders in prison, but at a certain point, the only geniuses left are men. There are more women who are above the average point on the bell curve. Their cluster is more toward the middle top. Men occupy both extremes of that spectrum. Yeah. And that can be, yes, that can be in part due to testosterone. So what does that tell you? It's not the hormone in and of itself. It's how we raise young men. If you have a father to channel all of the positive attributes that testosterone brings, guess what? It's a net benefit. It effectively can be a superpower. And I use that term very loosely. I know you guys all watch Marvel films. I don't because I'm a grown adult. But, for example,
how dare you?
Testosterone does encourage risk-taking. That's why men take more risks. That's why men knock over banks. Or men decide to go out on their own and innovate new, like Apple, like computers, like the internet, like fire. Testosterone can make men more driven. Yeah, sure, make them more aggressive. And that's why you can have bad men who start wars and genocide. But that's also why you can have good men who kill those men, good men who fight the wars for the side of good. Do you think that bad guys, do you think that people who want to watch the world burn, do you think they want to do without testosterone? Do you know what the Nazis did? Do you know the cocktail? The human cocktail they had their soldiers on? You're talking about methamphetamine, you're talking about opiates, you're talking about very likely steroids for a lot of them because they said, we want our men as strong and as aggressive as possible. Yeah. What you need are moral men who have those same capabilities and have it channeled. Testosterone is incredibly important, and it's one of those things, we always want the wartime presidents during war. Winston Churchill. They reached all the way back, said, we need Churchill. 2 years after that, they said, he's not supporting socialized healthcare. The testosterone now is a problem. Aggressivity, risk-taking, these lead us to occupy both ends of the bell curve. Guess what? We need to teach our young men how to channel it properly, not try and eliminate their testosterone. Because you know what you have? If men don't have testosterone, they live shorter lives, they live weaker lives, they live more miserable lives, they're depressed, and we have a society that can't function. By the way, then women say, where have all the good men gone to? Well, take a guess.
Yeah, exactly. Women don't like this either. They end up with a bunch of beta males, and they're like, is there a good man to be found out there? Somebody who's maybe going to stick up for my honor when I'm not just going off and getting him into a fight on purpose in a bar or something like that.
Right.
Or somebody who's going to defend our home if somebody should break in the middle of the night and threaten harm to anybody that's in that residence. You need men to have that ability. And I think you hit on it. It's fathers. Fathers are the ones that can help men understand how to bridle that power and to turn it into something that is good. I remember the Gillette commercial that we covered maybe a year or two ago. I can't remember when it was, where boys were wrestling on the ground and they were saying, boys will be boys. And they kind of repeated it in this long kind of thing. And it's like, no. We have to break that stereotype. No. I do want them wrestling and having fun and roughhousing a little bit, not only with other kids. I'm not saying beat somebody up, but I'm saying with their dad as well. That's how you learn your place. That's how you understand the limits and the lines you can't cross with other men, right? We have that kind of check.
Bridled strength is priceless. You cannot change the world from a position of weakness.
No.
It's not possible. Good example, we've talked about it with Joe Louis. Joe Louis could end all of our lives here. We live by his mercy, and he is incredibly sweet. And so we're grateful to our wonderful Lord Joe Louis that he doesn't go absolutely, God forbid he develops epilepsy and watches anime at some point. But it's different from that in a Yorkshire Terrier because guess what? When you have a robber in the middle, I know that Joe Louis is going to get to work. But it's bridled strength. And we can't give, by the way, Cameron too much flack because keep in mind, it's a little bit tough. There's a give and take depending on the day. The left is sometimes saying that testosterone is not, it's a toxin for men. It's not when injected directly into a woman, however, to unnatural levels, and just look at what testosterone has done to Elliot Page. So when you see what's happened there, it's just...
Oh, wow.
Seems a little bit self-promotion.
There's another Aliens coming out?
Is there?
I hope not.
Oh, God, I hope not. By the way, this is a live show, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern. You can watch on Rumble. You can listen to the audio podcast. Mug Club. We'll be doing a Mug Club extended today with Alex Jones because I'm sure there's a lot that he has to say. That we cannot discuss here on YouTube. All right, let's move on to Russia here. So Russia, we'd like to introduce a new segment because there's a lot that goes on in Russia, not just the war with Ukraine. There's a lot that you may not know about, which sometimes it's important, sometimes it's relevant, and sometimes it's just hilarious and foreign enough that it makes us uneasy, which brings us to a new segment we'd like to call Russian and Bussin'. All right.
They're silly people.
So on Monday, Vladimir Putin, just to be clear, not fans of Vladimir Putin.
No fans.
Nope.
That was mocking.
Also, by the way, not a fan of Zelensky, just to be clear.
No.
Yeah, don't like any of them.
Nope.
And I don't think we should be involved, just to be clear.
He's got an Oscar, though.
He does, for playing the piano with his dong. So on Monday, Vladimir Putin signed into law a new bill outlawing what they refer to as materials that promote LGBT. See, they don't go QAIP.
They don't go far, yeah.
I'm surprised they went with the T.
Me too.
They should have been like, LG, that's all you get.
The TV?
You will say, give me B and T. I say, no, you do not get your L and G, and even that is a stretch here in Russia. So they banned materials that promote gay, queer, whatever lifestyles. Here you go.
For years, being gay has been extremely tough in Russia. Now it's about to get even harder.
Poor choice
after
of
Russian
words.
parliament passed what it calls
pun
the
intended.
LGBT propaganda law, claiming in part it's a defense against U.S. influence.
I cannot put it any other way. The United States of America has become the global center of this sodomy. Let them live there. Do not touch us.
I mean, he's not wrong.
No.
Don't touch us. He's just looking at some Trudeau. He's like, don't touch! Don't touch me! You and your black face and gay hands.
And very short.
The
tables.
United States sodomy. They just, boy, they stuck that landing.
It's like a nightstand.
Yeah. There's no LGBT. Like, the men who like to have sex with men, how does that even? A man cannot accommodate a man unless you do something gross. So under the new law, individuals can be fined over $6,000 for what they refer to as LGBT propaganda, over $3,000 for demonstrations of LGBT causes, information that encourages a change of gender among teenagers. So here's the thing. Some of that seems fair.
Right.
And if we put that into effect here, we could just basically eliminate the national debt just from the fines to Disney.
It's true. True story.
So you can comment below on what you think about this, and if you can at least understand where they're coming from. Of course, I don't think that anyone should be punished just for being gay. Of course, I believe that everyone should have equal rights here in this country. I don't believe that marriage is a fundamental human right, but I believe in civil unions. That's always been my position. But I certainly don't think that someone should be arrested for being gay. Someone should be mistreated for being gay. Someone should not enjoy the same rights as everyone else. But I do understand them right now trying to safeguard when they look in the United States and they see children being put on puberty blockers, when they see hypersexualized issues being taught to children ages kindergarten through third grade. And you'll hear some people say, this is a boogeyman argument. I hear people from the left saying, no, it's not a boogeyman argument. It's not a what if. It's not a slippery slope argument. There had to be legislation proposed to stop it because of the policy of the entire DNC, to be clear. So I understand this reaction. Might be an overreaction from Russia, but you also have to understand, like with Brittany Griner, they don't share your values.
No.
They don't see a bunch of guys with leather chokers on floats having sex in the streets of San Francisco as something they want in Russia. And by the way, I would say that that's our best export as the United States.
Right, exactly. And by the way, this is a strengthening of an already what they saw as a draconian 2013 law. They're just basically making it harder on people who do these things. But go back to one of those quotes. They basically said for teenagers, if you're doing a public display for teenagers, in their mind, they cannot even imagine having kids involved in any of that. Right. They're saying, no, this is a $3,000-something fine if
only they knew.
And it's like, no, but they're looking at us and going, I don't want to be that hellscape.
But my point is, what are they? They must be missing. They're sitting there at their large table going like, oh, they can't do this with teenagers. They're not old enough. What's next? Having drag queen brunch with French toast and 5-year-olds? Stop strawmanning, Boris. Come on. They're not that crazy. We're talking about teenagers. They have no idea that's happening with children in grade schools.
Yes, and then they just turn on the news and they're like, well, son of a...
Like, oh,
Boris,
this is so much worse.
All right, Boris.
We need new laws.
We need bigger tables, too.
Quick, get Putin. Oh, he shit himself downstairs again. Well, we'll find the next guy.
You saw that story, too?
Yes, I did.
He fell down the stairs and soiled himself. Whoops.
Whoops.
Wait, really?
Yes, he did.
What do you mean, really?
Yes.
I didn't see
He
that.
fell downstairs at his residence and shite his pants.
And that's the problem with only operating from might makes right. Same thing for women. Beauty is temporary.
Yeah.
Putin's never going to be as strong and powerful as he seems, especially when he trips down the stairs and poops himself. People are like, I don't know if he's as alpha as I thought.
Yes. But by the way, he's outlawed stairs in the entire country.
Yes, but
now. So it's all lifts and ramps.
Yes, and it's only slight improvement. He now uses ramp and pisses all over floor. By the way, in seemingly completely unrelated news, 2,500 seals were found dead on the Russian Dagestani coastline.
Oh, poor seal.
So federal fisheries, they said that they weren't necessarily sure about the cause, but they would be investigating. And actually, fortunately for us, Russia Today obtained, I believe, an exclusive leaked photo.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Well, that makes sense.
That's
For people listening on audio, you can go and watch it over at Rumble or on YouTube because it makes no sense. But it involves Seagal and a leather choker and a seal.
Yeah. I was wondering where Seagal went.
Yeah, that's where he is.
Yeah, he's on mission.
In the shadows.
Still has yet to, he's never lost a fight.
Never. Yeah.
I've never lost a fight.
Ever.
When people come up to me, bad things happen.
If you check the...
Especially if they mention that my hair went from bald to gray to full black to spray paint.
I guarantee you, if you check that seal's head, you'll find a bullet.
I can't be friends with anyone who believes in Steven Seagal. Just so you know.
Hard pass.
That for me is a purity test. If you believe in Steven Seagal as a thing, we have nothing in common.
You know who you are.
All right, before we get to Alex Jones, Twitter, the Twitter files. Now, Dave was in yesterday, so we wanted to make sure that we did a deep dive and we were able to get all the information possible because there's a lot to kind of unpack, and there will be more files coming out.
Right. And we thought some was going to come out last night, but it turns out it didn't. I don't know why it got pushed, but Elon said something about needing a little bit more time to get it all together. So,
why does he need more time?
I don't know. He does. I mean, he runs 5 companies and has 9 kids, so
that's true. Lives in a tiny
busy
house.
Fellow.
So Friday, of course, when he released the Twitter files, and the files were reported by an independent journalist, formerly of Rolling Stone, Matt Taibbi. There was a thread on his Twitter account. All the references are available at louderwithcrowder.com. So here are some of the highlights. But there are some other interesting facets here that I think some people have maybe missed, and I also think this has been really sort of valuable as a lightning rod to see who in the Republican Party should not be considered amongst our ranks.
Right, exactly.
So what do we have? We have the Biden team consistently asked Twitter to censor material. This may not be surprising, but the specificity with which it happened is very disconcerting. So by 2020, requests from connected actors to delete tweets were routine. One executive would write to another, more to review from the Biden team. The reply would come back, handled. Now, here's the thing. Some of these tweets in question were from some small accounts. You can bring this up here. Some of these accounts that were banned, you have relatively small accounts, and they included what they claimed were sensitive pictures of Hunter Biden. Here's something interesting. You see the big account, you see James Woods, you see these big names, right? But I said, well, hold on a second. What are these small accounts that no one is talking about?
Yeah.
2 of the accounts that were targeted, they just seem to be anti-Chinese propaganda accounts that were banned.
And that nobody would really even know.
Or suspended.
Because you'll look at the James Wood thing and go, oh,
Right.
okay, I'm going to focus on that, but who's this other person?
It's always the in-betweens. It's the little stories sometimes that give you, and this is why I talk about when we do what we do, we're incredibly grateful that you have all joined and supported us with Mug Club. I don't know that it's possible for people coming up today with the way big tech censors to create what we've created. I don't know if there's a way for them to draft in behind us. That's a big part of what we're working on in the new year, to try and create an ecosystem where little guys actually have an opportunity like we did have in 2009 and 2010, 2012, before the algorithms changed it. It's what you don't see. It's not the big celebrities. It's the people who don't have that kind of pull. How are they treated? And they were removed, and stories were censored repeatedly, and that happens in the dead of night. And that is long-term. So much more dangerous because you're just kind of trimming this and you're etching that out, and then you end up framing a narrative and no one knows. It's the you can't really prove or disprove a negative because you never knew that story existed, and there's no way to find that story. That's what's so dangerous with all of this that I think a lot of people have maybe missed with the Twitter files. Something else that we obviously know, they were suppressing the laptop story, of course, on the grounds of it being hacked material. Well, they knew it was bullcrap.
Yeah. I don't understand.
They knew it was bullcrap back then, to be clear.
Immediately they knew.
It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a lie. It was a lie with which Twitter was complicit. They claimed they thought it was hacked. And I thought, well, did they not just watch our show where Giuliani brought the laptop on air? No, we know, according to, and I want to go to you in a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Here's a quote. Former VP of Global Communications, Brandon Borman, wrote in an email, "Can we truthfully claim that this is part of the policy? As part of our approach to addressing potentially hacked material, we are limiting visibility of related stories on Twitter while our investigation is ongoing." Deputy General Counsel Jim Baker replied, "I support the conclusion that we need more facts to assess whether the materials were hacked," meaning the Hunter Biden laptop story. "At this stage, however, it is reasonable for us to assume that they may have been and that caution is maybe warranted. There are some facts that indicate that the materials may have been hacked, while there are others indicating that the computer was either abandoned and or the owner consented to allow the repair shop to access it for at least some purposes. We simply need more information." Here's the thing. They were saying maybe, maybe not. That information was available. When you look back through history, it's not did people do what they could do with the information that they had at that time. It's what other information was available at that time. And were there contrarians? Were there opposing viewpoints saying, hey, there is information available at this time which was discounted? For example, Anthony Fauci with AIDS, saying that you could catch it because it was airborne, that a kid could catch it from his parents through a cereal box at their house. When other people were saying, no. It's primarily gay sex in the bathhouses that you attend. The same thing with COVID, right? This came from a wet market. people say, well, they did the best with the information they had at that time. No, 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 no. Were there other people at that time saying, no, no, that doesn't seem to be the case? When they said, hey, 2 million people are going to die within the next 4 months, according to the Imperial College of London. This is all the information we had at this time. No, no, no. Were there other people at that time who were doctors, who were scientists saying that is incorrect? At this point in time, they said, we simply need more information. They could have asked us. We had the laptop on this show. Hey, they could have asked Giuliani. They could have asked the FBI, only the FBI raided Giuliani's apartment and took everything but the laptop. They deliberately avoided finding the relevant information because they knew that it wouldn't, of course, support their narrative, all the while censoring the story for the entire world. This happened on all major platforms.
Yeah.
We need more information. Why didn't they go get it? They could have made 2 phone calls. We did.
Yeah, well, and my problem is twofold with this, right? And so one of them, I'm going to ask the guys in Mission Control to pull up when they ran the New York Times story on Donald Trump's leaked tax returns, right? That fit right into this policy. Like you said, is the policy applied equally? Donald Trump had been famous for saying, I am never releasing my tax returns, so much so that he was sued over and over and over again to get them. And all of a sudden, the New York Times runs a piece. Here are Donald Trump's leaked, read that, hacked tax returns, right? And they ran it, nothing.
Now, that's illegal.
That's illegal.
That's illegal. Hunter Biden was so high that he didn't pick up his computer from Geek Squad. And I know it was a computer repair shop. By the way, the guy who owned the computer repair shop said, I'm available for interview.
Anybody want
I have the receipt. Anyone want to talk with me about it? I will declare this to be true under oath. No one from Twitter reached out?
Yeah. But here's the other part of that. When he just said in the quote there, he's like, is there a way for us to hide behind this policy so that we can do what we already want to do in the first place?
Right.
That's how he said it, not, is this something that fits in the policy? Let's look at it objectively and make sure that everything's okay. No, no, no. We want to ban this story. We want to get rid of this. Can we hide behind the language in this
there was, and by the way, there was a Democrat representative who had a problem with this. So it was Ro Khanna, who was, by the way, connected to Ro Khanna obviously was connected with the Democrat Party and contacted Twitter's lawyer, one of their top lawyers, that Vijaya Gad. I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, but here's the thing. It doesn't matter because she no longer matters. Now,
thank God.
This is what this person said. Was concerned about the First Amendment, said, hope you are well, Vijaya. This throttling of the laptop story seems a violation of the First Amendment principles. If there is a hack of classified information or other information that could expose a serious war crime and the New York Times was to publish it, I think that the New York Times should have that right. And this is even assuming that it was hacked, which it wasn't.
Right.
So to restrict the distribution of that material, especially regarding a presidential candidate, seems not in keeping of the principles of New York Times versus Sullivan. I say this as a total Biden partisan and convinced he didn't do anything wrong. Now, this means that there are some people on the left who understood the gravity of this.
Yeah.
Here's something that really I would say is most disconcerting to me. There are Republicans out there. There are people who want to tear down the conservative movement, who are trying to say that if you're a conservative and you're being a drama queen about the First Amendment, you don't understand the First Amendment. This is a private company. They can do whatever they... How often have we heard that before?
All the time. Every single time something comes up from somebody on the right saying, we've been deplatformed, we have been shadow banned, we've been demonetized. It's like, well, sorry, you guys said free market, individual companies can do whatever they want, right? Right?
Right.
We're like, guys, that's not what's going on.
So you've got Bill Kristol, you've got David French, you've got Jonah Goldberg, and Bill Kristol may be just the worst Republican ever.
Is absolutely the worst.
I mean, you might find someone who maybe crapped his pants or something in the Senate a long time ago, but I don't think you're going to get much worse.
In the coat room and didn't tell anybody?
So David French said that what Twitter did had nothing to do with the First Amendment, and this is what you're hearing. And by the way, hit the like button because the algorithms tell you that we're dead on YouTube, and hit the like button if you strongly disagree with the idea that this is not a First Amendment issue. It directly affected the outcome of an election. Anyone who is telling you otherwise either is lying or hasn't done their research. We now know that back then Twitter was lying. They knew that it wasn't hacked. At best, they thought it was likely not hacked, but they decided not to do their due diligence. At worst, they knew beyond any shadow of a doubt that it wasn't hacked, and they decided to throttle it anyway. Yeah. So this is David French. This is just shamelessly wrong. A private political campaign is not the government, meaning that at the time, Joe Biden, because Joe Biden was reaching, his officials were reaching out, his team were reaching out to Twitter officials.
Donald Trump was in office.
Right. A political party is not the government. Hold on a second. The political party that controls the House chambers? Okay. A private company is not the government. It is if it's doing the government's bidding.
Right.
Then it says, this isn't a systematic violation of the First Amendment. The First Amendment isn't implicated at all. This was not in any way a private company making a decision on their own. This was a private company doing the bidding by the way, flying in the face of all factual information that we had available to us in order to favor one political party who, by the way, controlled substantial portions of the government and were seeking to control all portions of the government. Every coup that has happened throughout history has often historically been militarily, right? Someone has some kind of a coup through guerrillas, right? Or they somehow maybe subvert the military, get them to turn on the current leaders. Right now, we're in an age of information guerrilla warfare. And so, if the opposing party to Donald Trump, right, we're talking about, of course, Democrats, Pelosi was the speaker still at that time, if they can get Twitter, Facebook, Google, YouTube to do their bidding, that's the equivalent to a military coup. You want to talk about insurrection? That's insurrection using the most powerful entities that exist on planet Earth. Bill Kristol retweeted an article, and he argued that MAGA trolls were just mad they couldn't post Hunter Biden dick pics.
Jeez.
By the way, I was mad that we couldn't post Hunter Biden dick pics, but that's not what that's not what this is about. He wrote, while normal human beings who denied Republicans their red wave were enjoying an epic sports weekend. Yeah, sports. I'm sure you know a lot about that, Billy. MAGA activists were getting riled up about leaked emails revealing the troll accounts were not allowed to post ill-gotten photos on a company platform. Hey, hold on a second, Bill Kristol. You claim to be, this is like the Anna Navarro. I was a Republican. Okay, so we get it. You're not pro-life. Okay, so we understand it. You don't like Donald Trump. But if you say you were a Republican and you say the party left you, do you mean to say that you were never on board with at least the tenets of the Republican Party in theory that believed that government should be limited, that government should not infringe on personal liberties, right? That we believe at the very least, in other words, you were a Republican fiscally, so then you would still have to believe in as much decentralized power as possible. So how can you say, I was a Republican, but I'm really glad that the government, that the DNC coordinated with the world's biggest tech platforms to censor a story that would have changed the outcome of the election. And here's another guy, Jonah Goldberg, who may be a decent man. I've spent some time with him very, very briefly. Never been a fan of the way that he presents his points of view, namely because he thinks that he's funny. So according to him, the story, Hunter Biden, and this isn't just about Hunter Biden, by the way, it's about the implication and the corruption and the stranglehold that foreign entities could have on a potential future president who is now the sitting former vice president. It wasn't just about Hunter smoking Parmesan cheese. That was the funny part. It was about the kickbacks to Joe Biden. It was about the liabilities that we would face as a country if someone is beholden to foreign entities, which we now somewhat see with Ukraine and amounts of cash pledged that seem to defy reason. So according to Jonah Goldberg, though, this story didn't matter at all because it wouldn't have changed anything, which is, of course, factually incorrect.
We talk about A to C. They now think that if only the media had told us about the laptop at the time, as the kid yesterday was suggesting, which I don't buy his theory, that Trump would have won. But for the censoring of the New York Post, Trump would have won. And I think it's a preposterous counterfactual, but it's also it's impossible for me to refute. In the same way, I cannot refute that this bottle is keeping all the polar bears
refute
away.
that your testosterone levels are 25% lower than your...
polar bears?
No. He's the 40%. He's what skews it to 25.
And this is just it has now become...
Can we lock the doors just in case?
It has been wrapped into a much larger narrative, and so when they hear disinformation, they say, oh, you mean like Hunter laptop, which actually turned out to be true.
Okay, a couple of things. First off, it's not just about the Hunter Biden laptop. Okay, it's about the constant suppression of information and not misinformation, suppression of information. For example, we had Carrie Lake on. Biggest election stream of all time, 2016. They decided we're not going to, 2016 and 2020. Yeah. They said you're not going to be allowed to do midterms, so it ended up being the biggest election stream off of the platform that is YouTube. That's suppression of information because Carrie Lake had a problem with the voting methodology, specifically in a primary that she won. We were removed for that. It's suppressing people who say, you know what, I don't think that keeping children at home for years with COVID is beneficial. I think the net negatives outweigh the net positives. In other words, it's not just about the Hunter Biden laptop story. How would the election landscape have changed when you take into account what, at this moment in time, okay, as the election was taking place, there was never going to be a vaccine, according to the DNC. Donald Trump didn't do anything for COVID. It came from a wet market. The CDC and the WHO were to be trusted, and the Republican Party was a party that was anti-science at this point in time. And, by the way, Joe Biden was, of course, beyond the scope of any type of corruption because no one even knew about Hunter Biden. It's all of it. Now, let's just narrow it down to the Hunter Biden laptop story. And this is the straw man that Jonah Goldberg and David French and these people use. They say, oh, it's a private company. It's not a private company if they're doing the government's bidding. Oh, I don't necessarily know that the Hunter Biden laptop story would have changed the election. It absolutely would have, but we're not just talking about Hunter Biden. That was just the most egregious example in which they were caught. But let's just narrow it down to that. Remember when I say don't trust the experts? Jonah Goldberg doesn't know his thumb, if you have children, I'm sorry, doesn't know his thumb from his dick. Because according to the polls, we've talked about this, you can reference all of these at louderwithcrowder.com, 17% of Biden voters themselves said they would have changed their vote or not voted if they had known about the laptop story and the contents therein. If you take that into account, this is just the Hunter Biden laptop issue, not the Fauci issue, not the vaccine issue, not the mask issue, not the homeschooling issue, not the Ukraine issue, not the Chinese issue, just the Hunter Biden laptop story. Taking that into account, that would have changed Arizona, that would have changed Georgia, Nevada, Michigan, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. You just change a little more than half of those, and the election changes. Here's another argument they make. Well, the Dems weren't in control at that time, the Democrats, so it doesn't really matter. They didn't have any power over Twitter. Again, the DNC is the official wing of the Democratic Party. Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden, of course, are the de facto representative of the Democratic Party. Of course, it shouldn't only be people who are currently in government, though the DNC encapsulates that too, but people seeking the most powerful role of government, namely the President of the United States. According to Taibbi, just to be clear on this, by the way, who's not a conservative, this system wasn't balanced. It was based on contacts because Twitter was and is overwhelmingly staffed by people of one political orientation. There were more channels, more ways to complain, open to the left, far more, meaning Democrats, than the right. This is something, and by the way, keep in mind too, with all this misinformation going out there, and conservatives being suppressed, we need to be able to fight back. Of course. So people say, well, why don't you just go create your own Twitter? Okay, well, then maybe they remove it from the App Store. Right? Or what happens is it's no longer searchable, whether it's Parler, whether it's Rumble, whether it's actually Twitter now. Go and create your own. Or you know what? Hey, at the very least, Kayleigh Mack, she was obviously press secretary.
Yeah.
She was removed just for mentioning the Hunter Biden story. So when you have Twitter, who is provided protections under Section 230 as a public utility, and they are removing the people in government who are tasked with ensuring that you receive accurate information, at what point do we say, okay, it's no longer a private entity? It used to be that the government was in a position of power and they would have strong men in industry, right, to enforce their unfair laws, legislation, right, to enforce what basically ended up benefiting those at the top. It's the exact opposite now. It's the elites in power who are worth far more than these individuals in government who now have the government enforcing their wishes. And it's a quid pro quo. And I ask you, do you feel free? And something else, it's really important to keep an eye, especially as we go into another election, conservatives who concede this territory. We're not looking to be removed from YouTube, but guess what? We're fine with it if it happens. Nothing would make me happier than all of you heading on over to Rumble right now. I cannot force you to. But when you have conservatives going out as apologists for Twitter, going out as apologists for Facebook, or demanding that other conservatives play ball with YouTube and that they make sure that they remain monetized, these things happen, right? And I'm not just talking about David French. We need to keep an eye on that because we need to expect better from people in our movement. We need to be... It's time to storm the castle, and we need to be a battering ram. We can't keep playing this, oh, well, is it a private company? Nope, it's not. We've proven beyond any shadow of a doubt that it's not. When Republicans have power, conservatives have any kind of power, they need some legislative accomplishments or change them, boot them. And that includes people who've been on this show. I'm actually really excited to have our next guest on the show. Before we bring him on here, we're going to have a stinger, and then we're going to have a brief introduction for those of you who missed the interview that had taken place with Ye and Alex Jones. There's so much to get through, and of course we'll be taking some of your questions as we go to Mug Club later on. But just to be clear, hey, can we, before we move on with this, just to be clear, Please, by the way, hit the share button, hit the Rumble button, hit like, whatever it is, Tim, that you want them to hit right now for the algorithms, because YouTube is not going to want you to see this. Just go ahead and pick one. Don't do the paralysis by analysis. If I say 2 or 3, he's like, oh, it's like a lion tamer with 3 prongs in the stool. Just to be clear, before we have Alex Jones on and we discuss this topic, do we all agree here? Hitler bad?
Yes,
absolutely.
Good,
Okay.
good.
Yeah, yeah.
There we go.
Hitler
There we go.
bad.
There we go.
Yeah.
Hitler bad, right?
That's the context.
And none of you are just keeping up appearances.
No.
We all genuinely believe
really bad
that Hitler was a bad guy. You know,
he was.
National Socialist, disarmed the population.
Yes.
Big government, progressive.
Homo.
Right. Maybe that too.
Yes.
Yeah. He's
Bad.
a homo.
He's.
And by the way,
Have you ever seen Eva Braun? Come on.
one day blew his brains out, I think, after he was married. It didn't take long.
Didn't
It
last
was
long.
worse than the war. So let's bring on Alex Jones.
That's a whole quagmire. I did find some just entertainment, sick entertainment, though, watching him and Alex Jones yesterday. And it's just funny because, like, Alex Jones was treating Kanye West the way that everyone else treats Alex Jones on their show. He kept trying to give him an out. He's like, well, of course the media's going to try to say you're a Nazi, and they're going to, I am a Nazi, though.
Well, CNN says white people are evil Nazis, so, I mean, I disagree with both statements, but I get the Trojan.
I don't like the word evil next to Nazis. I think we need to look at...
Oh, my goodness. Just because you don't like one group doesn't mean the other. But look,
I love Jewish people, but I also love Nazis.
Oh, man. Well, I have to disagree with that.
I like Hitler.
I don't like Hitler. And I know you're trying to be shocking with that.
I'm not trying to be shocking. I like Hitler. I do not. The Holocaust is not what happened. Let's look at the facts of that. And Hitler has a lot of redeeming quality. Perfect answer for the ADL. They are going to have to listen up. What we did is we brought Netanyahu with us.
I mean, I'm in the twilight zone right now.
It was bad. It was bad for Trump to meet with Nick and Ye. Okay. I had no idea your voice is going to sound like that, Netanyahu.
Well, CNN says white people are evil Nazis, so, I mean, I disagree with both statements, but I get the Trojan.
I don't like the word evil next to Nazis. I think we need to look at...
Oh, my goodness. Just because you don't like one group doesn't mean the other. But look,
I love Jewish people, but I also love Nazis.
Oh, man. Well, I have to disagree with that.
All right. Mr. Jones, thank you for being with us, sir. I felt we needed to include that context. Boy, seemed like you were holding on for a bumpy ride with that interview. Do I have that about right? Did you expect that in your wildest dreams?
No, I didn't. And I didn't say what he could talk about, but I said, can we just try to bring people together and talk about real issues like human trafficking and fentanyl and how you want to bring jobs back to America and really see the deeper side of you and not just sound bites. And they were like, yeah, in fact, he doesn't want to even get into that stuff. But then right away, sitting in the same studio I'm in right now, Thursday, bam. And I thought he was joking at first. And here's the deal. He pulled up in front of the office and got out of the vehicle in the GIMP mask. And so I didn't know what to say. And I said, pull your mask off. Let me see it's really you. And it was him. He puts the mask, he unzips the mask, and then it's really creepy in person with the mask.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, really, I would see this as almost like a giant trolling operation, really. He was super high on adrenaline when he did it. He feels really good about it. And I don't think has a very good historical knowledge about World War II either. So, I mean, he really is in love with all of that design, which so much of what the Nazis designed ended up being brought over here with Operation Paperclip. Right. So if it's bad that Ye says he loves Hitler, then it's even worse that our own government brought tens of thousands of Nazis in at the end of World War II to run most of the major agencies. So,
sure.
On a Richter scale, I guess.
Both are bad, but
both are bad.
But I did notice that you tried to bring in the concept of I'm trying to remember the term Hitler. The man, was it the man yet to come? What was the The man to come.
The Coming Man.
The Coming Man. And I remember, yes, exactly, The Coming Man. Sorry, forgive me, but it's something with which I'm familiar. And I remember you asked him a very pointed question. You said you don't want to be that coming man. And it was very clear to me that regardless of where people line up here on any of this, and of course I'm anti-Hitler, and I know that you are, and I'm really glad the Allies beat the Nazis. He was not familiar with that. And so it does concern me that if he's going to go out and make these statements, were you concerned sort of understanding or being around his close inner social circle that they really aren't doing a good job in ensuring that he's informed when he goes out and discusses these issues?
He is very forceful and has a big personality, and it's really hard to get a word in edgewise, kind of like Trump. And people think I have a big personality, but I'll actually be quiet sometimes. And I'm not, putting him down for that. He was like a whirlwind. You couldn't shut him up. He was going to say what he was going to say. And I was bringing up historic, real things about the Nazis that my family, who were in World War II, told me about. Oh, that's true. We saw that in Germany, or we saw that in Italy. Again, both my grandfathers almost died, both of them World War II. I almost don't exist because of it. And they talked about what the Nazis were like. And my mom's dad also worked on some black budget weapons programs in the 50s and 60s, and just said that he'd been at some military bases that had Nazis on them, and they were very, very arrogant, and he didn't like having to work with them in some of these programs. So I'm like 8 years old, hearing my grandfather in Austin, Texas, sitting around the kitchen table bitching about Nazis and working on secret weapons programs and how arrogant they were and how much he hated the government bringing them in here. So that's a real thing that's going on. So my dislike of Nazis really comes from my grandfathers, who both didn't like them very much.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. What was it when you had, obviously there's the numbers aspect because he's a huge name right now in the media. What was it that you were looking to achieve, or what were you hoping would be the end goal? What would be the ideal scenario with this interview with Ye? Because obviously it went viral across the media, but bringing him in, what were you hoping was going to come of it?
Well, while I was listening to you do a great job at breaking down that this whole Hunter laptop thing and the Twitter files are a lot bigger than just Hunter Biden. It's everything they've been censoring. I was thinking, what do I want to say about Ye first? And it's just this. I really thought I could come in here and shut up at first and let him get it out of his system, even if he did it. Right. I was saying, hey, let's do something different. Let's show him your intellectual side. Let's get into a bunch of issues. And I had all these issues in front of me. He goes, why don't you just set those aside? We're not getting into that. So I was like, okay, he's letting me know he's in control. And so I figured after an hour at least he would let me kind of then bring up some topics I wanted. But you kind of had the salacious crumb, the baby Hitler of Nick Fuentes over there. That was a joke Jimmy Kimmel made. Like, where have I seen this before? And it's I'm Jabba the Hutt, and there's a salacious crumb sitting there. But seriously, I didn't know that Nick Fuentes was really a Nazi lover.
Yeah,
I'd had him on over the years 3 or 4 times whenever he was being debanked or censored, and he would be like, no, I'm not a Nazi. I just care about white people's rights. So I think this whole thing was a real coming out. And I'll be honest with you, especially with the Fuentes thing, and I'll still have Fuentes on. I believe in the First Amendment. But there's a real creepy factor with this Hitler stuff. And then I also noticed that Richard Spencer came out and said, yay, blew Jones away, because Jones is really controlled by the liberal narrative that Hitler's bad. But those of us that know the dark, powerful beauty of Hitler and of the darkness and of the strength, and it's like some homoerotic, thing over Hitler, that is kind of what's going on. There's this Hitler fetish. And no, I'm not into dudes in fancy, peacock military uniforms that by the way, got 22 million Germans killed. So the biggest killer of Germans in history, if you like Germanic people, and I'm basically half German, have a lot of German roots, is Hitler. Hitler was a disaster. Hitler was an occultist. Hitler was a pedophile. Hitler was horrible. Screw Hitler. Burn in hell Hitler. And the left uses Hitler to push their communist agenda that is basically just as bad and authoritarian, to call all of us Hitler. And so people are so sick of being called Hitler, they go, hey, if Hitler's so powerful, let's just say we're with Hitler. And that's what these people are doing. And I felt like I was sucked in to a giant publicity stunt. Now I'm not mad at either person. I understand that they probably even believe what they're doing. But no, I saw a whole bunch of programs like the Young Turds and all of them say, Jones is just mad they let the secret out. Jones likes Hitler. No, I hate authoritarians. I hate communists. I hate Xi Jinping. I hate Hitler. I hate Mao Zedong. I hate Joseph Stalin. I hate Fidel Castro. I hate Hugo Chavez.
Yeah.
I love George Washington. I love Thomas Jefferson. I love American strength and freedom and power and Christianity and open societies and capitalism and free speech. And I want it back now. So burn in hell, Hitler and Stalin and Mao. Burn in hell. This is what I told Piers Morgan. Hitler took the guns. Stalin took the guns. Mao took the guns. And if you try to take our guns, 1776 will commence again.
You are my yay right now. See, I'm you and you're yay. See, I think you have some. I think you have some empathy for what I have to do sometimes when you're on. By the way, Alex, don't do that thing where you Monday morning quarterback and take credit for it. Hitler was already in hell burning before you said that.
That's right.
Okay,
True.
that's not because you called for it.
Yeah, exactly.
But no. Look. I understand exactly where. At first, I thought you were going to say the biggest killer of Nazis were the uniforms, because that's how we went in. I thought you were going to say like the Hugo Boss uniforms were made of asbestos. But no, I agree with you. And here's the thing: you have people trying to defend it, saying, well, and there's validity to this. Kanye West said, "I love everybody." He didn't say he hated anybody. He said, "I love Jews. I love Hitler." But he did go out of his way to praise actions of Hitler while condemning actions of Jews in this sort of general monolith, and he did actively deny the Holocaust. So to act as though it was an equivalency of I love everybody, that's not what happened with that interview. Now, if people out there want to say, hey, he has every right to love Hitler, of course, and if you say I agree with him when he says he loves Hitler and that the Holocaust didn't happen, fine. But to act as though there was this equivalency, on your show in its totality, sure, he said he loved everyone, but he did have specific praise for some totalitarian dictators.
Well,
and
he said, I love Hitler. I think he had an orgasm over there.
Well, that's just how he sounds when he raps. I love Hitler, huh? But he, it was one of those things where, let me ask you this. Do you think that ultimately it kind of ends up hurting? It kind of ends up hurting people who are out there advocating for free speech when we're saying we are not Nazis, and the guy goes out and just puts on a mask and says, actually, I do love Nazis, and actually the Holocaust doesn't happen. It does make it hard for people out there because, look, you're a lot of things, Alex. An anti-Semite is not one of them if people have looked at you historically. I don't even think many people have leveled that accusation against you. If anything, you've seen anti-Semites, people who legitimately hate Jews. And I don't mean people who don't believe that we should be sending a bunch of money to Israel. I mean people who legitimately hate Jews have accused you of being controlled Jewish opposition for a very long amount of time. So,
well, that's the thing. Yeah. And here's the deal. I don't like MS-13, but I'm not against Central Americans. I don't like the new Black Panther Party that's like a black KKK. But I don't blame black people. So Jews are a very diverse group for anybody that actually studies politics and geopolitical systems. There's a whole bunch of factions in Israel constantly fighting with each other and assassinating each other. The Jews over there have some of the most draconian, vaccine rules in the world. If they're so special, why do they have all that? So it's really not true. Are there powerful mafias? Are there powerful groups in Hollywood that happen to be from a certain group? Absolutely. And do we see those groups supporting leftist garbage in the media? Am I irritated by those groups? Do I like the ADL trying to take our free speech? No, I'm a big critic of the ADL, and they single me out at their big events just 2 weeks ago with the head of Pfizer and 2 years ago with Sacha Baron Cohen saying, I'm evil, I'm dangerous, I need to be silenced. But there's all sorts of groups trying to silence my speech, not just the ADL. So it's really what it is with these groups is.
And by the way, to be clear, just so people don't say, when we say these groups, we mean anti-freedom groups, and we do not mean Jewish people. Just to be clear, George Soros is a second-generation atheist. Okay, let's be clear about that. Yeah. So to act
that's what
as
I just
though,
said. I'm being 100% clear, but at the same time, I'm not saying you're doing this. I get you have to because they'll lie. I'm not tiptoeing around this. What I'm saying is, I am critical of all of the anti-free speech.
Yes.
Pro-tyranny groups. Last time I checked, Tim Cook's not Jewish. He's working with communist China to suppress their people. Last time I checked, Xi Jinping's the biggest dictator in history. His communist regime, going back to Mao, has killed more people than Hitler ever thought about. They estimate 100 million. So, but again, I don't dislike Asian people. My sister is Korean adopted, and I love her. When I was 14 years old, we adopted her from Korea when she was 6 months old. I love my sister. I love Asian people. But I am scared as hell of Xi Jinping and his 50 million man army. And I'm definitely upset about it. Yeah. And so, again, if there was some country with 1.5 billion Jews in it, and they were promoting freedom and like America used to be, I'd try to go move there. But if there was country of 1.5 billion Jews promoting world government and death camps and forced injections, I would say I'm against that regime, not because they're Jewish, but because it's authoritarian. Same thing with Xi Jinping. I mean, it is the most evil regime in history. It is our main foe. We are in grave danger.
Yeah.
And again, nobody says, oh, you don't like Xi Jinping because you don't like Asians. It's all a fraud.
Yeah, I hate the Communist Chinese Party because my heart goes out to the Chinese people. I think Gerald has a question for you, and I appreciate you taking the time because I know that was a tough seat to be in, Alex. There was a moment on your face where you looked like the Boom Goes the Dynamite Kid, where you were like, I could tell that you wanted a break. I've been there. All right, Gerald, do you have a question?
Yeah, so I just wanted to dive into the Christian thing just a little bit because people are conflating this Christianity thing with people on the far right that espouse these anti-Semitic views. And even Ye said, I love everybody. Well, and you said it too. You said not that you love everybody, that you're a Christian, right? Just declaring like, I am a Christian. I don't like these things. Christ said he loved the sinner but hated the sin, right? He always called people out for their sins. Just to be clear, did Kanye call Hitler out for any of his sins on your show?
Well, let's be clear, and that's what Kanye didn't get, which is why I'm not trying to put him down, but I don't think he has a fifth-grade education about the Nazis. And I'm going to try to meet with him again and actually show him some real history from Hitler's own writings. Because Hitler was anti-Christian. Hitler was an occultist. He wanted to eradicate Christianity. Some of the top Nazis in the party did. Now, later, when he took the country over, did some Nazis wear crosses on their shirts? Absolutely. People mixed it together. It's like, you might have a Texas thing and then an American flag thing or an Army thing.
Right,
or,
they co-opted it.
Yeah, they co-opted it. And sure, the Catholic Church was taken over by the Nazis. I mean, they ran Italy, they ran Germany, so they went along with it. I'm not defending the Catholic Church, but the idea that Hitler was a Christian or that Hitler was born a Christian and all this stuff, Adolf Hitler was a deep occultist in his own writings, in his own words. That's why they used runes in their uniforms. Everything he did was about, once they had a worldwide Aryan master race in control of all the slave races, the Ubermenschen over the little slaves, the supermen over the slaves, they were going to eradicate Christianity. They wanted earth worship, blood and soil. If you want to see what they did, there's footage now on Twitter of Ukrainian Azov battalions cutting themselves, getting in a tomb, a 6-foot grave, bleeding into the blood, getting out, hailing you-know-who, but they hail Odin, and then they go over and put their hands on Odin. They've all got swastikas on their arms. That's a real blood and soil Nazi ritual that Hitler invented, that the SS did. So when you see the Azov battalion, they're doing SS rituals. They're not Christian. They're co-opted Norse, Germanic, Viking religion mixed with the Nazis.
Yeah, one of the other reasons that I know these groups are not Christian, Alex, is because the entire Bible from the very beginning to the very end is God's redemption plan for us, but specifically the Jewish people, and God is not done with him. He promises them an opportunity to come back and have a final chance. That's the entire book of Revelation. Most of the Bible is about the redemption of the Jews. And so for anybody out there to espouse Christianity and say, I'm anti-Semitic and that this stuff wasn't bad, they haven't read the book. They are not amongst us. They are wolves in sheep's clothing. And by the way, my final point on this was, you've talked about the history in World War II, and he's like, well, Hitler invented the microphone, and he did this, and he did this, and he did this. And
he said highways and the microphone that I'm using. Yes, I think he maybe means the Autobahn. Like, roads were around before Hitler.
They were, but I mean, his highway system, the Hugo Boss stuff, the rockets, I get all that. He doesn't mention the fact that he did things that would make the Egyptians blush with the people that they killed to build the pyramids. I get it. Maybe aliens did it as well. But I don't think he understands how many people's lives were
That's
destroyed.
why they have to deny it. That's why there has to be a Holocaust denial component. And this is, first off, before I move on to this, because there's so much to unpack here, Alex, how do you think the press has covered it? And I don't mean you. I think that, I don't mean, of course, they'll try and tar and feather you, but I'm saying, do you think that the way the press has said that, hey, Kanye West, yay, on Alex Jones, went off and was very obviously incredibly anti-Semitic, do we think that in this case, was the press partially right? In other words, are they completely misrepresenting it? Or when you were sitting there, did you feel as though this is probably not productive for him?
Look, I like Kanye West. I like Ye. I think he really means well. I don't know if Nick Fuentes believes what he's saying and doing. Nick says a lot of really good stuff I agree with. Once I heard him endorse that he thinks Hitler's great, I lost a lot of respect for him because I know Nick's really smart. And I'm not saying Ye isn't smart, but, he's kind of a savant and, has a lot of talent and stuff. And so, I think in the long run, Ye wants to be a big revolutionary and wants to hit the barbed wire, as he said. He said, you're Terminator 1, we're Terminator 10. And I just really think at the end of the day that that's not the case. The left have adopted so many of the actual Nazi tactics of control and their whole system of lockdowns. What you see in China, big groups of people by the tens of thousands being marched together, being led by one Pied Piper in the whole white medical uniform. That's the real type ideology that the Nazis were striving for. And we know that Hitler and, of course, Joseph Goebbels wrote about how, this is public, they wanted to take over England and kill H.G. Wells and kill Bertrand Russell and others, because the H.G. Wells and Bertrand Russell had a competing authoritarian world government leftist model that the Nazis were competing with, and they saw themselves, as you said, as socialist, but a different brand of it. And so I happen to know for a fact that the left and the tactic, that's what George Orwell wrote in 1984 about. George Orwell was number 2 in the propaganda arm of British intelligence in World War II. He'd been a communist before that in the Spanish Civil War and been a hero and heavily wounded. But then when he actually got at the top of the British socialist society and recognized that actually Stalin was being funded by the West, that it was actually a war against the individual in the future, and that Hitler had been wound up by British intelligence, not run by them, but actually built up and given power and funding early by the big banks. He realized that there was a global authoritarian system that operated under different names, but basically had the same goal, total power and control. And the reason I know that is not just reading 1984, probably 8-9 times, but I've read the writings, the essays in several big compendiums of George Orwell right before he died in 1949. He finished 1984 in like 1947. But he died about a year and a half later. And so George Orwell had this view of it as well. He thought the Nazis were the ultimate evil. He fought them before World War II in Spain and against Franco. And then he later learned there was a more evil group of Fabian socialist, British intelligence, basically Spectre, what you see in the James Bond movies. James Bond is Spectre. And I'm not saying all of British intelligence, but that British empire model that merged with America at Bretton Woods, and then America became the world empire at that point, that system is full spectrum dominance, where they want to control all the major groups and then play them off against each other in a Hegelian dialectic.
Can I jump in here with 3 things? First off, I do encourage people. No. I do encourage people to go and research, Orwell, and also, by the way, the Catalonians, because this is something where people will try and use it as an example of successful socialism, right? In the 1930s, say, anarcho-syndicate socialism. Go read what happened with Orwell and read how that collapsed and the kinds of pressures, and basically there were still factions of warring socialists. Because I was taught that in university. I was taught that in college, that was a good example of socialism, which lasted all but under half a decade. The other thing is, Kanye West said, if you're Terminator 1, he's Terminator 10. I don't think he understands how progressively shittier the Terminator sequels have gotten after Terminator 2. So that's actually a compliment to you. But here's something else. Look, you and I, you know that I disagree with you on some things, and I agree with you on a lot, disagree with you on some. But I do think you're very consistent in your approach to what you believe morally to be correct and incorrect. Here's my issue with some of the stuff that's going on with Ye, and I don't believe there's hate in his heart. Like you said, I think that there's probably some ignorance, because, and the reason I hold out hope is I see him. He's very pro-life, and he talks about eugenics, and he talks about Sanger and Planned Parenthood and the genocide that's taking place against black babies. But then he doesn't seem to draw the connection that is something, of course, that Hitler was incredibly enthusiastic about and permeated our abortion policies today.
Hitler said Margaret Sanger's book was his Bible. Look this up. And they used the Margaret Sanger and the Cold Springs Harbor, New York, Rockefeller-run eugenics laboratory as their defense at Nuremberg, because it had been the Rockefellers and Margaret Sanger that helped set up the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute in the late 1920s that then funded Hitler and was the brain trust of the Nazi race sciences. So what you said is 110% true. And that's what I would try to tell him also once we got off air. So I'm going to try to meet with him sometime when he's not as manic. I'm going to try to explain to him.
Do you think he's manic? Can I ask you that? I know you're not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. Did you sense? I've had bipolar people in my family. And he has said that he was diagnosed with that. Did you see maybe perhaps some signs of mania? And this isn't concern trolling, because I really hope he has people around him who are helping him and care about him.
No, I mean, I don't think he's mentally ill. I think he's enjoying himself. You know, they have all these diagnosis terms. I mean, I'm pretty manic. I have a lot of energy. You know, so does anybody that's successful. I don't know, but he did seem to be very, very. People can go to Infowars.com because remember, I'm more censored than anybody else out there. They can go to Infowars.com and they can also go to Band.video and find the full interview and actually see it for themselves in context. I can't bring myself to go watch it again because I can't stand watching myself, but I've watched a lot of excerpts, and I just think what happened was he decided to go all the way. He decided to try to be as shocking as possible and say, screw the world. And then once he started pressing on the dopamine button of saying the things he said, he just couldn't stop. And so it became, you know, just a situation of redlining the engine the entire time he was on.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like that might be the case. All right. Well, look, I actually do want to ask you about some things that we probably have to discuss on Mug Club only. Let me just leave this one thing because I do think this is important. Because look, we do know that you have many Jewish fans. I have many Jewish fans, and by the way, I don't just mean Zionists. I mean there are Jewish libertarian fans who support Israel, certainly in contrast to Hamas and Iran, and people who want to wipe them off the face of the map, but think that we shouldn't be providing as much foreign aid. I don't believe that that's anti-Semitic. I do think it's important, and I think what happens is people are imprecise when they say Jews. It's very different from, for example, Black Americans, or if you, for example, like you mentioned, sort of people from Mexican Americans. Jew can mean a Jewish person can be Jewish by faith, meaning they practice a faith. They can be Jewish by ethnicity, and they can be Jewish by culture. And to lump them all in, there is a very big difference between, yes, I do think there's a conversation to be had about the secularists in the entertainment industry. And if someone wants to conflate that with anti-Semitism, what they're doing is saying, oh, is it because you're saying because they're Jewish? No, no. I'm saying for the same reason that there are plenty of non-Jewish people in the entertainment industry who are involved with grooming, who are involved with, by the way, the degeneracy of society. The only reason that there tend to be people who are largely atheist Jews in the entertainment industry, or for example in banks, which compared to them as a percentage of the population is true, is for the same reason that there are plenty of Jewish doctors and scientists and Asian doctors and scientists, because they're very hardworking, industrious people who value studying, who value higher education, and who value those fields of work. We need to be clear when people are discussing these things that there's a huge difference.
So let me elaborate on that before you switch to Mug Club, because I think this is very important. The left has wrapped itself in, we're Captain America, we're fighting the Nazis, and everybody else are Nazis on the side. That's made a lot of people get mad and say, okay, screw you, I'm a Nazi. I think that's what's happening with Nick Fuentes and people like Kanye West, Ye West. But I'll tell you, I've been attacked massively by the ADL, all these other groups, and they wrap themselves in, we're Jews, and then they attack me in the name of Jews, which is then making a lot of people think, well, Alex Jones is good, you must be bad. So I know there are a lot of Jews out there, conservative Jews and others, that have sent letters to the ADL saying, leave Tucker Carlson alone, stop calling him an anti-Semite, it's not true, or stop calling Donald Trump an anti-Semite, it's preposterous, he's a great friend of Israel. And so it's the weaponization of the left that is actually giving support to real Nazis by watering the whole thing down. It's very, 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 very serious. And the ADL knows exactly what they're doing. So I think people have a right to say whatever they want as long as they don't call for violence. I think if the Azog Battalion's on there doing literal hit rituals on Twitter, you know, Ye should still be on there. So I'm not defending any of the censorship, any of that. I'm just simply saying the left weaponizing World War II that ended 76 years ago, 77, however many years ago, is very, very dangerous. And the left saying at universities, the national news, you cover it more than anybody, that being white's inherently bad, and teaching courses on that is going to then make Nazis sound legitimate, because here's a bunch of leftist academics and Hollywood people, a lot of them Jews, literally trying to teach the majority minorities, who are now the majority, that, oh, white people who aren't a certain, you know, a religious group, you know, white people except Jews are all bad people. This is Hitlerian. This is racist. This is race-based politics by the other side. And I know almost all Americans, no matter what color they are, disagree with it. Almost all Jews disagree with it. But if we look at the media and just turn it the other way, it sounds like Hitler when they're on MSNBC saying white people are inherently bad, and it's going to be great when there's no more white people. That needs to stop. That is Hitlerian in the name of fighting Hitler. Do you see the psyop?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And also, you know where I've never heard that kind of rhetoric? I've been to many a synagogue, just to be clear. Many. Never heard that kind of hatred coming from observant Jews and Orthodox Jews, and I think it's important to delineate. It is Infowars.com. We're going to go to Mug Club.
Oh, I got to tell you right again. Look, folks, ultra-Orthodox Jews, as they call them, are super right-wing, pro-America. I mean, I see their views. I'm like 98% exactly. And in Israel, the leftist Jews, when they're in power, persecute the right-wing Jews.
Right? No, exactly. It's not a monolith, and people need to be clear about that. And I think that we need to be able to have honest conversations about all of these issues. And sometimes I think that it's overshadowed when someone is, like you said, I don't think you were roped in to any kind of publicity stunt, as you said. I don't think you were used. I think you're clever enough to not allow that to happen.
Well,
but
I knew it was a danger. I knew it was a danger, but I believed it wasn't going to happen. I would have much rather had it been a big story and it had been a coming together and an awakening, and then have a relationship with Ye instead of him blowing up like a sun going supernova and burning himself up. I mean, he didn't really hurt InfoWars, because people know I'm not a Nazi. I'm like, dude, that's not good. But at the same time, Fuentes, and I'm going to get him back on there and challenge him. He's just giggling too much, like it's fun watching this over here. He's not stupid, and you know he knows the history here, and so I'm going to have a debate with Fuentes, not a mean debate. But I'm going to get my history, he can get his history, and we're going to have a debate about this because, you know, to admit the truth about World War II. Look, I mean, I told the story when they were here. My grandfather his dad was German. Most of the rest of the family had been in Texas forever, but his dad still spoke some German and was only like second generation in Dallas, and they were rich Germans up there, and he owned the big Chevy dealership and all the rest of it, and they lived next to a super rich German who was first generation, who'd moved here as a kid, who was the inventor, one of the main inventors of refrigeration. He had big patents on air conditioning. He was super rich, the equivalent of a billionaire today. And in the fanciest part of Dallas, he owned like a 100-acre complex. And my grandfather would go over there and he would tinker and work in this guy's invention shop. Reason my grandfather after World War II got into inventing and stuff and was involved with some different projects. And he watched this guy who had blonde hair, by the way, and blue eyes, totally German, you know, I quote, Aryan. He watched that guy from the early 30s up until my grandfather went off to the Army Air Corps, and he watched that guy get totally depressed, just shut up, become reclusive, and I think he told me the story twice, commit suicide later, was because he later learned the Nazis over the decade that they were in power from 33 or up were threatening to kill his German relatives in Germany if he didn't secretly give him all their money. So that's what the Nazis did, is they were the most cutthroat. At the end of the war, they probably would have won if they didn't spend half their time running around stealing all the art, including the drapes. They had whole giant cave systems that they had people build just to put the hordes of loot in.
Yeah,
I mean, they were
absolutely evil. And by the way, if the people back then, this is the thing, it's one of those things where people today Monday morning quarterback and say, I think they did a lot of good things. Well, guess what? The people who were held out as ambassadors back then for Nazis, it was done by force. For example, Max Schmeling and Joe Louis. Max Schmeling, a lot of people know the Jesse Owens story. Max Schmeling and Joe Louis, right? Schmeling was the Aryan representative, Joe Louis for the United States. They were good friends for the rest of their lives because Max Schmeling was not a Nazi, did not support what they were on board with. Now, before we go to Mug Club, it's Infowars.com, and I'm hearing, I don't want people to misrepresent what you're saying. You just said you're not trying to platform because you agree with him. You want to have Nick Fuentes on so you can debate him and show where he is wrong. And I think that is something that is healthy. Otherwise, people exist in echo chambers. Infowars.com. We're going to go to Mug Club because YouTube, there's no way we could do this here. Alex, stay with us. YouTube, piss off. Thank you, Rumble.